Hi, I'm Natasha, also known as @Natashka all over the web. I'm an illustrator and educator, and in this tutorial, I'm going to walk you through how I add these highlights to my illustrations in Photoshop. So you can go from this to this. This method will really help your illustrations pop and take them to the next level. I honestly feel like this method is a game changer. I personally use it in all of my illustrations, and I feel like the beauty of it is that you can be super subtle or heavy-handed depending on what you're going for. And I also have to mention that you don't need to buy any special custom Photoshop brushes for this. I'm going to show you a few of the default brushes that come with Photoshop that I think work really well, and I'll also show you my custom Photoshop brush too, just so you can see exactly what I'm using in my own illustration work. Okay, so first things first, you want to open up Photoshop. And for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to start off with creating a random shape on its own layer. Now, I know we're going to be focusing on highlights, but you can't have highlights without shadows. That's just how shape and dimension work. So let me show you how you can quickly add those shadows in first. Basically, we want to create a new layer above our shape, and hovering our cursor over the space between the two layers and holding down the Option key, we should see this little white box and arrow. Once you see that, click, and now you've created a layer mask. Now, what this means is that anything you draw on this layer will be confined to the one below, just like this. So here you'll see that I'm quickly adding some shadow to my shape. I'm doing this by selecting a color that's a bit darker than the base. And I'm going to be using the soft round pressure opacity brush that comes with Photoshop. I'm going to drop down the opacity, and using gradual strokes, I'm building up to get that soft blended look. Okay, so now for the highlights. What we want to do is select a color that is lighter than our base shape. Essentially, the closer to white, the more dramatic the highlight will be. Now, what we want to do is create another layer. I'm also going to mask it to that shape below. And basically, we just want to use that same brush to paint on the highlighted area. Now, using the eraser tool with the same kind of brush, so in this case, we're still on the soft round pressure opacity brush, we want to carve out and define that highlight a little, just as I am doing here. Usually my opacity will be around 30% for this, but I would tweak that up and down while I work. Now, once you have your highlight, you can play with the opacity up here to your liking, and you can choose to stop here. But if you want to take things one step further, you could go in with even more dramatic highlight. And this is done much the same way. So basically what you want to do is create yet another layer, selecting an even brighter color, turning your opacity all the way up, and basically drawing in a much more heavy-handed highlight, just like this. And again, going in with the eraser tool just to add shape to that highlight. Sometimes I even like to go up to Edit, go down to Transform, and select Warp so I can further play with that shape and positioning of the highlight. And that is basically it. So I did promise that I would walk through which free brushes you could use to achieve this. And when it comes down to it, you'll want to stick to the soft diffused Photoshop brushes. So soft round is a good one. The same with soft round pressure size, soft round pressure opacity, so the one that I just demonstrated for you, as well as the soft round pressure opacity and flow. Honestly, they're all great and pretty much identical in how they perform and what kind of effect they achieve at the end. I personally like a little bit of a grainy texture to my illustrations, so I have my own custom grainy brush that I use, but the process of drawing out the shadows and highlights is identical. So just to demonstrate the differences between the finished products, here I have that shape again up close with the Photoshop brush, and here I have my custom grainy Photoshop brush. They're essentially the same, especially when you zoom out, but it does add a little bit of grit and texture, which I personally prefer in my own work. So I'll link the brush in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. And that's about it. That's how I add highlights to my illustrations. So you'll see here that I have used that exact same process we talked about today to go from this to adding shadows, and then the cherry on top, the highlights. So I have another tutorial on my channel that goes through my illustration process in a lot more detail, so feel free to check that out. Otherwise, be sure to like, comment, and follow. I really want to connect with other creatives and illustrators and would love to hear what kind of tutorials you want to see from me in the future. Thanks for watching. I'm Natasha, your digital illustration teacher. I'll see you over in the next tutorial. Bye for now.